Good morning, guys. Today we are going to have language class and we are going to review a topic that you already know, compare and contrast. Remember that when we compare, we tell how two things are the same. So when we compare, we look for the similarities. And when we contrast two things or more, we tell how they are different. Okay, so compare similarities, contrast differences. Okay, guys, now I want you to go to page 110 and we are going to underline the clue words or highlight. So you have to have your highlighter. Compare and contrast. So it says that when you compare and contrast things, so we are going to underline compare and contrast, you tell how they are similar and how they are different. So compare is similarities and contrast are the differences. Also, guys, when you compare, we can also compare those things with something that we already know. So let's underline this. When you compare, you also can compare what you already know. You are going to learn that in the example. So right now, guys, we are going to read this passage and it says directions, read the following passage. Follow the reading with me, please. In Japan, during the Middle Ages, samurai warriors, by here you have the samurai warriors, followed a code of honor called Bushido. Following the code meant being a fierce fighter, an athlete, a kind of honest person, and living a simple life. All that was the code of honor for the samurai. During the same time in Europe, knights, these ones were the knights, caballeros, were expected to follow the code of chivalry. Chivalry meant you were loyal to a lord, the landowner who hired the knight, brave in battle and honorable in all deeds. So if you can see, both of them were following a code of honor. Okay, let's continue reading. They wore, as you can see, different armor. Samurai primarily wore protective leather gear, and knights wore heavy metal armor. So, what was the reading about? About two groups of honorable men, the samurai and the knights, right? Both of them were following a code of honor. Excellent. And in the code of honor, they had to be what? Brave, honest, okay, in both of them. Those are the similarities. And now tell me, what about the uniforms? Did they have the same uniforms or not? Well, both of them had to use uniforms, but the uniforms were different. One uniform was made of leather, cuero, leather, and the other uniform was made of armor, metal armor, the knights. And also, samurais were living where? In what place? In Japan, and knights in Europe. So can you see that we can find similarities and also differences in the text? So let's read these directions of here. It says, complete the following graphic organizer. List similarities and differences between what? Between chivalry and Bushido, or between the samurais and knights. Chivalry and Bushido were the code of honors that they were following. So we are going to compare chivalry that were for knights and Bushido that were for samurais. So what similarities can you find in the text here in what you read right now? What can you say about both of them? Something that they both had in common? Excellent. You can say that both of them were following or had to follow a code of honor. Excellent. Now, tell me what difference can you find between the samurai and the knights? For example, guys, did they live in the same place? No, right? So that is one difference. So we can say that samurai lived in what place? Asia, and knights in Europe. Now you have to compare. In the third column says compare with what I know. What do you know about following a code? For example, in what place that you know in your days you have to follow a code of honor also? Like rules. Exactly, at school. For example, what do you know? You know that your school honor forbids cheating. Forbids is not permitted cheating or copying from the text of my classmate. That is a code of honor of the school. That means that you are a good student because you do not cheat, you do not copy from others. Okay? So I already helped you with the first row. Now it's your turn, guys, to find another similarity in here. So you have to find another similarity. Think about samurais and knights. Read again if you need to read this passage and find another similarities, something that both of them have, and write it in here. You already have the difference. Look, this one is already done. Samurai wore leather gear and knights wore metal armor. So in here you are talking about what? Uniforms. So tell me in here now, what do you know about uniforms? So you have to compare with something that you already know. What do you know about uniforms in your days? And in here, remember that you have to look for another similarity that both of them have. And that's all what you have to do for this page. Easy, right? I already helped you in most of the page. Now, guys, stop the video and complete this page because we are going to continue with another activity. The other activity is, have you wrote a poem? Or have you ever read a poem? So, I know that you have done it. You know that a poem is a literary writing that is very different from other texts because a poem has a special intonation, rhymes, and things that make the poem sound very nice. But right now we are going to learn what are the key features of a poem or what are the characteristics of a poem. And we are going to say that the first one is uses verse. Look, verse to communicate ideas. Uses verse to communicate ideas. And what is a verse? When we are writing, the guys, for example, if I want to say that tomorrow we will have classes, we say tomorrow all students from 5th grade are going to have classes. And that is one sentence because it communicates a complete idea. Yes or not? But in poems, we do not call them sentences. We call them verses. So, for example, the one that I have here, look at the poem. Did you see? What you have in here, I learned how to fish last May. That is a verse. So I want you to identify it, underline that, and write verse, because that is a verse. So if you can see, from here to here, I have one verse, 2, 3, 4 verses. And in here I have another 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are verses. Or they are like sentences, but in poems we say verses. Now, guys, this group of verses make one stanza. One stanza. And here we have another stanza. And here we have another stanza. So in the first stanza, how many verses do you have? 4, right? In the second stanza, how many verses? Another 4. And in the third stanza, 4. Okay, so you already know what is a verse and what is a stanza. A verse is only one line. The stanza is a group of verses. So let's go to the second point. Let's go here. The second point. It says, may use poetic techniques such as rhyme. So let's underline. May use poetic techniques such as rhyme or sound patterns. So we are going to find right now in the poem rhyme. But first, you have to remember what is a rhyme. And this is something that you have been learning since first grade. So don't tell me that you do not know what is rhyme. Rhyme is when one word sounds very alike with the other one. For example, map rhymes with cap. Do you see? They have almost the same sound. So, in a poem, guys, listen this carefully. In a poem, most of the time, rhymes are going to be at the end of the verses, at the end of a verse. So we are going to read the poem. The title of this poem is The Day I Learned to Fish. I learned how to fish last May. My sister wanted me to play. She took a look at my thick book and made me trade it for a hook. Second stanza. We took our poles and bags of bait to the pond beyond the gate. We flung our lines, sat really still, and leaned back flat against the hill. Third stanza. Splash, splash, went my fish. I caught a big one for my dish, but I put mine back anyway to catch again another day. Okay, if you noticed, when we read a poem, we don't have to read it like, I learned how to fish last May and my sister wanted me to play, she took me. No, right? We have to give the poem a special intonation, okay? So we have to be very patient when reading and giving it the appropriate intonation. So guys, in the first verse, let's read the first verse again. I learned how to fish last May. What is the last word that you have in the verse? May, right? That is the last word that you have in the verse. Now, tell me if you have another verse in the same stanza that rhymes with may. What word at the end of the verse, remember that has to be at the end, rhymes with may? Exactly, play, may, play. They sound similar, so that is a rhyme. Now, can you see another rhyme in the other verses? Remember that rhymes that are at the end of the verses. For example, book rhymes with hook. Excellent. Now tell me in the second stanza. We took our poles and bags of bait. Bait. Do you have another word that rhymes with bait? Gate. Excellent. Bait, gate. Another rhyme? Steal, hill. Another one in the other stanza? Fish, dish. Excellent. And the other ones? Anyway, day. So if you can see, guys, the rhymes are going to be in the end of a verse. So with this one, we already did number one. Look, because number one says circle the rhymes in each stanza, and we already did it. So number one is already done. Okay. Now, number two says underline the words that show the use of onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia, guys, is a vivid language, and poems use also vivid language. Vivid language, remember, that means appeal to the five senses. When you read the poem, you have to imagine just by reading. So that's why someone who writes a poem has to use vivid language for you to be able to imagine what you are reading. So, what is onomatopoeia? I know that you have learned this with Michayito in Spanish, onomatopoeia. It's the same pronunciation, onomatopoeia. So what is that? Here I have it, and I want you to copy this in this part of your book. Copy what is onomatopoeia. And it says that onomatopoeia is a type of word that sounds like what it describes. For example, if you are describing the sound of a bee, how are you going to say that? Bzzz. Okay, so that is onomatopoeia, making the sound of what you are describing. For example, this one, boom. If you listen to someone and suddenly, boom, what does it mean? A bomb, right? That a bomb explodes. So, onomatopoeia is when you make the sound of what you are describing. For example, if you say, my mom listened to the cell phone ringing, ring, 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 and you make the sound, or knock, 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 for knocking the door. Those are examples of onomatopoeia. So tell me, guys, in this poem, where do you have an example of onomatopoeia? I will help you. Look in the third stanza. Read the third stanza. Where are you going to, or where do you have an example of onomatopoeia? Excellent. Look in here. Splash, splash. What sounds like that? Water, right? When you put your feet on the water, they make that sound, splash, splash. So that is an example of onomatopoeia. So we already did number two. Underline the words that show the use of onomatopoeia. Splash, splash. And number three, guys, says list one example of assonance. But what is assonance? So I have it here for you, and I want you also to write this in your book. Write what is assonance. Assonance says that is that repeated vowel sound in nearby words. For example, in yellow we have what vowel sound? A, 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 A. Those vowel sounds are in words that are close one to another one. They are close, they are near to each one, each other. So let's read it. Patient always pays. Patient always pays. If you can see, we have that repetition of the same vowel sound A, A, A. Okay? So let's see in the poem, where can you find an example of assonance? Look, for example, in the second stanza, the last verse. Second stanza, last verse. Here we have back and flat. Why do you think this one is an example of assonance? Because if you say in that, look in number 3, back, flat, what vowel sound is being repeated? A. It doesn't mean that only A. It can be another one. It can be O or E or I. It doesn't matter. U. But in here we have with A, casually with the same example. A and A. And back and flat in the poem, they are very close to the other one. So that's why, remember, assonance is to repeat the same vowel sound in words that are very near, okay, or close. So, guys, what are you going to do is, I need to see this page like I have it in here, okay? Don't answer only number 1, 2, 3. I want to see the stanzas just like I have it in here, okay? And the verses also. And I want also in this part of your book, I want you to have onomatopoeia and assonance here. You have to write that in here, okay? So now what are you going to do? This is your homework. In the page that I sent by WhatsApp to your parents, it said that you have to write a poem that I was going to give you. So it's this one, Running Water, okay? It's very short. So you are going to write this poem, very nice, very beautiful, in your notebooks, language and arts notebook. And what are you going to do? This is what you have to do, look. Number, sorry for this, it says number of stanzas. So tell me, 5, 3, 2, 1, how many stanzas this poem has? Okay, so answer in there. Number of verses in each stanza. How many verses do you find in each stanza? So tell me if 4, not in total, in each stanza. Or 5, so write it in there. Number 3, circle. You have to circle the rhymes in each stanza. So circle the rhymes. It's very similar to the other one that we did. Number 4 says underline an example of onomatopoeia in the poem. And number 5, write an example of assonance. Where do you find assonance in the poem? So write it in here. Okay, in your notebooks obviously, and then send me the picture. So that is all for today, guys. Blessings.